Bit of a break. As well, it's not even a choice, but we'll take maybe a week or two off. I'm going to go over a little bit of a review of kind of what we talked about over the last maybe year or so of running this. I spent maybe 3 or 4 months on one topic and then 3 or 4 months on another topic, and I want to just do a quick review for you. So that inshallah, once we start our new topic, we're starting inshallah from a place where we're all in agreement. So the reason that we talk about Tazkiya is because a Muslim requires three things in his life. He requires a maslak i'tiqadi, a creedal path. You have to know God. You have to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you have to know how you're going to understand His grace subhanahu wa ta'ala and all that which He made fard for you to know. So you have to have a creed of some sort. So you have a creedal path. Every Muslim needs a maslak i'tiqadi. And a madhab fiqhi, and you require a jurisprudent school of jurisprudence, a school of jurisprudence to follow. You have to know how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or else how do you worship Him? Based on whose, based on what? You say Quran, Kitab and Sunnah, well, are you qualified to go and go to those sources and figure out how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And if you are, then please let us know so we can put you up. Otherwise, then you go find someone who knows and you listen. That's what the madhab fiqhi is. They explain to you how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number 3, mashrab suluki, a spiritual approach or ethical behavioral orientation. Because really what Tazkiya is the maslak, is the mashrab suluki. It helps you understand where your ethics come from and how to practice them and what spiritual approach you're going to have within your life. And these are the 3 requirements for every Muslim. You need to have all 3. Every Muslim should have each of these. The categories of Tazkiya are 4. There's the comprehension piece, which is al-fahm, which is everything that we do in these sessions. I don't do anything outside of fahm in these sessions. We just focus on the comprehension, just explaining the concepts, making sure that they're clear, making sure that you understand them. There is a sila, the connection piece, where we talk about the wird and the hizb and all that which comes with it. There's a sha'air, the rituals, where we focus on talking about salah and siyam and zakah and jihad and hajj and all the different acts of worship and what the essence of them is or are, what the essences are of these acts of worship and how to deal with them. And then as-suluk, the exercises, the different exercise, controlled environment behaviors that you go ahead and try so you can learn something about yourself. The focus of these sessions is the first category, which is the comprehension. I will throw out an exercise here and there, but exercises are only as good as the people who practice them and the feedback that is given after them, which I don't have necessarily the ability to do that in these sessions for you. But if you perform the exercises and you have an experience with them, you're welcome to share it, and I can help you with what I can, inshallah, or to the best of my ability. We talked about that. Within the essentials of Tazkiya, I pointed out a number of things for you over the course of this year or a bit more, even going back to the Tazkiya pearls or Tazkiya sessions that I shared with you in Ramadan of last year, not this year, but the year before. And I focused on, there are 4 focuses of Tazkiya, and these are the things you have to think about every day. These are your daily focuses. This is what you have to always, within your day, at least once, think about the concept of ihsan. That everything has a spiritual aspect to it. Nothing is purely mechanical. Everything has spiritual aspect to it. Everything has an essence. Everything does. No matter what you do, there's always an essence to it. No matter how simple it may be, there's always an essence. Even just eating, even your relationship with your spouse, there's an essence to it. So ihsan exists everywhere. You have to think about it at least once daily. Think about your ubudiyya, that you're a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what you are. That's what I am. I can't go through a full day without remembering what I am. There's a big disconnection if that's the case. If I go through a full day and I forget that I'm an abd all day long, and I don't even think about it once, then there's a big disconnection between myself and myself. You know who I am and what I think I am. Because we think about ourselves all day long. That's all we think about, is ourselves and where we're going with it. You have to remind yourself, you're abd, you're a servant. And what would a servant do in these situations? How would a servant behave? Number 3, your niyyat, the niyyah. You have to think about your niyyah at least once a day. Once you do this, by the way, when you take what I'm explaining to you seriously, and you make this a daily focus, with time, this will become second nature. These 4 will become second nature to you, and that will save you a lot of trouble. Like if these are second nature, if you're always thinking about them, you're fine. And you'll figure things out. Even if I don't explain them to you, you will be forced to figure them out. Because you're thinking about that you're abd. You're thinking about the essence of actions, the ihsan. You're thinking about your intentions when you do things. And you're thinking about contemplating the acceptance of deeds, qabul al-a'mal, whether your deeds are accepted or not. You think about that. You're worried about it. It's a big part of your day. Because you're performing deeds and you're wondering, am I any of this counting, or is this all being just, is it just being done and there's nothing for it at the end? If you think about this daily and it becomes second nature, then a lot of the answers to the questions that exist within the realm of Tazkiya, you will seek answers for if you do not provide yourself with proper answers, which most of us are capable of doing if we just contemplate appropriately. There are 4 rules for Tazkiya. Everything that you listen to in these sessions is about you. May Allah not forgive you if you ever take anything I say and you apply it to someone else. If you listen to what I say and apply it to someone else, I'll make dua against you. You apply this to you and only you. And if you want someone to benefit, then you can invite them to listen and benefit. But you can listen to them here. Go ahead, listen. You may find benefit here, but do not listen to what's being said here and then take it and apply it to other people. So yeah, everything you say, that's my friend, or everything you say, that's my sibling or my parent. Nah, it's not your business. Tazkiyah is for you. This is the one. All of Shara is like that, but this is specifically where when you're listening to what's being said, you're taking it and you're applying it personally to yourself. Now, if someone's asking you to teach them, then you can teach them as you are asking me to teach, or that's why you're here at least. I am not in the position to apply these rules to you and hold you to them unless you ask me to. Unless you say, Sheikh, I want you to hold me to these rules, and I'll hold you to that. I have students, I'll hold them to these rules. And I have people who are their same age, they're not my students, I don't hold them to anything. I assume the best and move on, because that's not my business. This is very specific. So this is about you. Make sure the first and second and third rule is it's always about you. So apply it to yourself. Number 2, the rules you have to perform your daily wird. If there's no amount of dhikr daily with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then none of this is worth your while. Like if you're not performing invocations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala twice a day at least or more. So the daily wird, I shared it before. You can go back and listen to it. But it should be the bare minimum, if not much more and added to in terms of invoking and performing tasbih and dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 3, daily contemplation. You have to get into the habit of making sure that you're always contemplating things. What you're listening to, you're taking time to think about. You're not just rolling it along the superficial part of your psyche. And if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, you move on. You take the concept and you really give it time. You let it really marinate and you think about it deeply. That piece is what allowed the Prophet ﷺ become who he became in his life and achieve what he achieved, because he thought deeply about all that which he was encountering. And number 4, that you perform exercises. When you're given an exercise, that you perform. These are the rules of Tazkiya. In order for Tazkiya to work, you have to follow these rules. When you're given an exercise, you follow the exercise. If we share something, so you try this, go try it. Don't act like you tried it and then come back and say I didn't. Or you don't like it, so you just, no, try it and see what you feel. That uncomfortableness when you try something is the whole point. Like the whole point of me telling you to do it is because I know you're going to be uncomfortable, you're not going to like it. And then you're going to have to figure out why you're uncomfortable. And then you have to find a way around it. All of that, you are learning things about yourself that later on you can apply in your life or draw parallels to what Tazkiya is about. But most people don't want to do these things because they bring out the feelings they don't like. So these are the 4 rules. The principles are that everything is gradual. You have to build habits. You have to be honest with yourself, which is one of the pillars, obviously, but it applies as a principle. And you will substitute your bad habits with good ones. And these are the principles of how we will make changes to our lives. There are 4 methods. You have external forces, you have internal forces, you have lifestyle changes and reinforcements, and I've talked about them before. So what are the pillars of Tazkiya? Which is what these sessions are focused on. What these sessions are, what I'm developing them for, or what I'm trying to focus on within them, is to talk about the 5 pillars of Tazkiya. And this, what I'm sharing with you, I'm not going by a specific book. I could. You wouldn't find it as helpful. I've studied the books. The books are very helpful, but they were written at different times. Tazkiya is about the human experience. It's about how we function as people in the world, and how our emotions are generated, and how our self-value exists, and what we. So it's very subjective in terms of how you. The concepts are the same. Nothing I teach here is not taught in a book. Nothing I say is original. Everything I say exists and was said by a scholar before me. I am just taking upon myself the liberty of organizing it in a method that I'm hoping it'll be more meaningful to the person who's listening to it in the 21st century living here in Canada. I can tell you that I've taught these same topics in Syria, and I've taught them very differently. I taught the same topic very differently. different examples in a different sequence of teaching because of the experience that these people have in life that's very different to the experience of someone, for example, living here in North America. So I modified a lot of this just based on what I observed of the experience of the people who were living here and my own experience living here as well. So none of this is original. It's just organized in a manner. I just organized it in a manner that I hope will be beneficial for you so that you don't have to read a book that is repetitive or is missing a piece or is a bit less relevant to you, and you end up reading 15 or 20 books before you can grasp the basics. I'm just making your life easier and just giving you the bottom line of it all. We've talked about in these sessions about two main topics. But before I do that, I want to point something out because I got a question that I thought was interesting and I want to share the question and the answer. I was asked right after Ramadan, how does this tie into the ethics and the values of Islam? And I thought that was an interesting question. Because in Ramadan, I shared with you the ethics, a series. I just talked about ethics and principles and values. We went through quite a large number of them, over 30 ethics and values. And we explained that there's an ethical sequence, an algorithm that we carry as Muslims that we have to follow. So how does Tazkiya play into that? Well, Tazkiya is how you make sure the ethical standard stays clean. Like how you make sure, if you have the ethical standard, if you figured out what their algorithm is, and you know what the most important, if you understand haqq and adl and istiqama, and you understand all of the ethics, al-wasatiyya and sidq and amana, if you understand all of these ethics and how they're dealt with and what standard they're going to be held to and how they're going to be judged, if you understood that, and that's the algorithm, that's just the mechanics of it. Like if you know how to deal with loyalty versus righteousness and which exceeds which and which is higher than, then how you make sure that you're able to make the right choice and to make the right judgment based on that algorithm is having Tazkiya. Because without Tazkiya, then you will find ways to justify your actions. You will find ways to bend the truth so that it suits what you want instead of you suiting the truth. Are you saying, like, if you decide that al-haqq is the most important thing, right, and that you have to follow that, well then, the most important thing after that is going to be your ability to see haqq as haqq. Right? That's going to be the most important next thing for you. If you've agreed that righteousness and istiqamah, doing the right thing, and justice, making sure people have their rights and don't lose their rights, if you agree that's the most important thing in the world, never should that ever be messed with or overturned or overstepped. Well then, logically, the most important thing next is to preserve your ability to perform that, to protect it. How are you going to protect it? If you listen to the ethics and values and principles series in Ramadan, it's not very complicated, by the way. Like, it's pretty simple. It's just pieces of information. If you understand them, khalas, you have now the algorithm. You know exactly what to do. Well, why is it that we don't do it? Why is it that across the globe, where 90% of human beings, even non-Muslims, by the way, agree to the ethical, the moral compass and ethical standards that we carry as Muslims? Most people do. Most people, even non-Muslims, even non-believers, they still agree to it. Wallahi, you speak to them, they'll tell you the same. Yep, no, that's how it is. Well, why is it that people don't actually adhere to these rules? Why don't we follow them? The reason that they're not followed is because of this, because of the tazkiyah piece. Because if you're able to lie to yourself, for example, what is self-accountability about? Self-accountability is about your pursuit of haqq internally. That you continue to see haqq as haqq and batil as batil. You don't start lying to yourself and telling, no, I was right, I wasn't wrong. And you convince yourself of something that was different and you change the narrative internally so you feel differently about what just happened. Because if you are someone who lives up to haqq, then the only way you can justify doing the wrong thing is if you convince yourself that it's not the wrong thing anymore. Which is why you need self-accountability and self-honesty, which is the third, which is we spent a reasonable amount, we spent 4 months talking about self-honesty and self-accountability. We'll continue to talk about it, but I gave it a nice chunk of time. Because if you're not able to be honest with yourself and hold yourself accountable when you made a mistake, then yes, you can claim that you're ethical, and you'll swear by it. I did the right thing. I did what I thought was the right thing. What you thought was the right thing. Did you truly think that was the right thing? Or did you convince yourself that was the right thing? Or did you spin the narrative and lie to yourself until you believed the wrong thing was the right thing and then you did it? And that's how most human beings live their lives. If you speak to a psychiatrist, it's justifying what you do, right? You're just justifying your actions. We're all very good at doing that as human beings. So how do you end that? You have to become self-honest so that you're able to continue to see the truth as the truth and batil and falsehood as falsehood. Without tazkiyah, the ethical standard, the ethical structure of what Islam brings, which is the morality of Islam is the most important piece. If you attended the Islamic philosophy lectures, what Islam brings to the world most powerfully and most uniquely is that morality, that we are moral beings, and that moral compass and those moral standards have to be protected, and we hold on to them, and they are the constants within our lives, and they're not messed with, they're never changed. That's what Islam brings. What I'm teaching you in Tazkiya is how you make sure that that stays there, because it only takes you a session or two to learn the moral standards. It's not very difficult. A few questions, you'll get it. The Quran makes it clear. Okay, you're stuck in a position where you're loyal to your parents, but someone has been mistreated and mazloom. What do? You go by haqq. If you have to bear testimony against your parents to serve haqq, then that's what you do. That's the moral compass. But are you able to do that? Or when the moment comes, you will find a million ways to convince yourself that you don't have to do it. A million ways to convince you, I don't need to do it. And you keep on bending the truth and bending the until it suits what you want it to be. Then what's the point? See, imagine this musibah, where you think you did the right thing. You think you actually applied the ethical structure and standard to yourself, but you didn't, because you had actually, your perception of reality you clouded your own perception of reality to think haqq is batil so that you could justify doing something wrong. Do you think, honestly, that any person on earth believes that they're evil? Do you think the leaders of the orange garbage can to our south, or the dictator over in the Holy Land, do you think these people think they're evil deep down inside? If you think that, then you haven't learned much of what I'm talking about. People don't think they're evil, but they lie to themselves so passionately, and they surround themselves with people who will reinforce those lies until they believe them, so that their conscience can go asleep, so that they can say, this is the right thing, I know it's the right thing, I'm doing the right thing. They think they're doing the right thing, they believe they are. Now, at some moments earlier, they knew it was the wrong thing. But if you lie to yourself long enough, you can change your perception of the truth and reality, and then you can believe it to be the right thing, and then you can do it. And that way you can actually justify it. I know, I thought it was the right thing. People will come to Yawm al-Qiyamah and swear to Allah. They will take an oath to God that they... It's one of the scariest parts of the Quran. يَوْمَ يَبْعَثُهُمُ اللَّهُ جَمِيعًا فَيَحْلِفُونَ لَهُ كَمَا يَحْلِفُونَ لَكُمْ. They will swear to Allah just like they swear to you, that they were doing the right, that they were trying to do the right thing. وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ عَلَى شَيْءٍ. This is the scary part of the ayah. And they believe at that moment that they're onto something. Well, why do they believe that? It's because now they're the compounded lies upon lies. They don't even know what the truth is anymore. They lost it. They lost themselves into it. This is why the world is the way that it is. Because we don't have this piece. People don't talk about this piece. But yes, the ethical standard is important, but without tazkiyah, without practices and principles and rules and daily focuses that will help you protect the truth. Self-accountability and honesty is all about protecting your understanding of the truth internally. Qisr al-amal, accepting immortality, is the truth. You're going to die, that is the truth. You don't know when, that is the truth. You have to be prepared, that is the truth. Everything else is a lie. Everything else we do is one big lie that we tell ourselves. People just want to keep on. People don't think about the truth that's coming. That's falsehood. If you know you're going to die and you're not prepared for it and you're not accepting it and you're not dealing with it, then that's a falsehood that you are living. Because the truth is you're going to die. 100%. Everyone is going to die, and very soon, much sooner than they would like. And it's not going to feel. Once you're 80, you're not going to feel like you lived 80. When you're 100, you don't feel like you live 100. You're going to feel like it's just the other day you were a kid running around. You're going to feel that you need more time. But this is the reality. Accepting mortality is accepting the ultimate truth, the only truth that all human beings agree upon. which is that we all die. Everything else we have differed upon, and we differ upon God, we differ upon ethics, and we differ upon everything. We all agree we're going to die. That's why this is important. It's the ultimate truth. If you can't accept the ultimate truth, the only truth that is in common with all of humanity, with all living things. Forget about humanity, with all living things. If you don't accept that, then what other truth are you going to accept? What hope is there for you to accept any other truth if that one you can't accept? Because whether you're religious or not, whether you know you're going to die. And that's a truth that just on a basic human level, a basic intellectual level, as a creature that can think, you have to accept. And if you choose not to accept that, then what hope is there for you to accept anything else? Why even waste time talking about other types of truth or other aspects of truth that you should accept if you can't accept the basic one, the one that does not require knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or knowing the Quran or knowing Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam or learning an ethical standard or anything else. It just requires you to be alive and look around for 5 minutes and you know this is what's going to happen. The moment you are born, there's a expiry date that is stamped right on every single organ. Your organs by nature are not designed to work forever. They're going to stop working. Unless you have to change them all. Like you actually have to replace them all. You have to replace your lungs and your kidneys. And then when we replace all of that, we have to replace your brain because your brain doesn't work anymore either. That's just a new person. Might as well just die and bring a new person. Why spend all this money? If I had to replace everything, I'll just replace the person. Which is what happens. Someone else comes in, we leave, we move on. We're on our way out, others are on their way in. That's why. Everything here, by the way, is just about preserving the haqq. Tazkiya is about preserving the haqq. I'll never tell you in Tazkiya to lie to yourself ever, or to accept a lie. All Tazkiya is about is the pursuit of haqq. We're going to talk about, moving forward, and this is just an example for you, because this, I think, is important connection. Why? Because ethics are the constants of Islam, the stuff that we all have to follow. How do we protect them? We protect them through these things, through learning ihsan and learning tazkiyah. We're going to start talking about understanding self-value. In Arabic, I wouldn't use that wording. I would use tawadun and rahmah. That's the pillar. That's the wording I would use. And it sounds better anyways that way. But in essence, it is about your self-value. That's what it's about. This is the number, it's on top because it's the first thing to talk about. I spent, I think, in my Tazkiya sessions over the last three and a half years or so. I think I spent in total around 2.5 years talking about it within different sessions. Some groups listen to me talk about it for 1.5 years straight because it takes a lot of time to actually understand it in depth. It's not as simple. I'm going to try to spend less, I'm not going to spend that much time here. I'm going to summarize it and give you the nuggets that you need to contemplate and think about it. But without this piece, obviously, nothing else really works. You have to put in the effort to understand your self-value. Again, why? Because it's a part of truth. It's the truth about you. Right? Your self-honesty is you accepting truth internally. Self-value is the truth about you. Like, what is the truth about you? Aside, mortality is about the fact you're going to end. But for the time that you're alive, and for the time that you're going to be alive later after you die, what is the truth about you? And who you are, and what value you carry, and what that means in terms of the perspectives you carry regarding other people and the assumptions that you have in them and the habits that you build. This is what self-value is. It's about the truth of that. Because the truth regarding that is not as attractive as what the nafs will present. Up front, like just on the superficial level, on the surface level, it's not as attractive as what the nafs is telling you. But when you actually understand what the truth is, it's much more meaningful. And it's grounded in truth. It's grounded in haqq. And it allows you to function and exist in a much more safe manner. Otherwise, if you thought something different or believed something different. Because we tell ourselves lies. Or others tell us lies. And whether you're telling yourself a lie or the community around you is telling you a lie and you're believing it, either or, this is going to cause you a lot of grief throughout your existence unless you are capable of understanding your value. Believe it or not, this is one of the main things the Prophet ﷺ brought the Sahaba. It's one of the main issues that he brought, right? Right up front, immediately, one of the things that immediately was understood from his message ﷺ is the famous hadith of Amr ibn Absa, the man who stood there watching the Prophet ﷺ pray early on, first few weeks, asking about him, and we asked him, like, what does he talk about? And he asked him, who is with him? He asked him in the long hadith, asked him in this hadith in Sahih, who follows him? So what was the answer? Anyone know what the answer was? قال حر وعبد. قال حر وعبد. A free man and a slave. Meaning he's followed by free men and slaves. Why? Because they're equal. Because he brought a narrative, alayhi salatu wasalam, that brought equality to hur and abd. You say, oh, that's ethics. No, it is. But it's on this level of value. You see, if you tell a abd that you're equal, but then treat him like trash, it's not going to work. If you tell him that he's equal, he has to believe that too. You have to offer him a narrative that allows him to see the truth in what's being said there, so that he can embrace that, so he can actually sit there as abd, surrounded by free people, and feel equal, and feel enough value to be able to carry himself in that. And the hur, the free man, who lived all his life amongst nobility, surrounded now by people who were enslaved, unless he has a narrative that allows him to see the truth, he won't be able to sit with people who are like that. He wants to sit with people who are better, or whom he thinks are better. But he brought that, alayhi salatu wasalam, early on within this narrative, bringing equality amongst those in front of him. This not only was an ethical move, no, it was a revolutionary understanding of self-value, of what it means to be a human being, of what it means to be a creation, what it means to be Muslim. And this is one of the hallmarks of what our deen actually offers to its followers, that I find painfully sad that most Muslims don't understand properly. I'm going to explain it slowly. We're not going to start with the reality or the facts. I'm going to start by helping you comprehend where this comes from. Where this comes from. The way we live our lives from childhood on is really based on trying to prove our worth. And as a child, that's important. As a child, you need a little bit of that. You need the pushing of, you have to prove yourself, especially for young boys. Maybe for girls it's similar or maybe a little bit different, but for young boys especially, you have that ongoing pushing of you have to prove your value and prove your worth and prove. And in many situations, you're proving your value in affiliation to something else or in association with something else. For example, your value to a team is different than your self-value. They're not the same thing. I'm not talking about that. Your value on a team is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your self-value, your value in totality as a human being. What does that look like? Your value to teams or your value in certain circumstances is different. My value in an oncology team is one thing. My value on an NBA team is a very different thing. On one, I'm helpful. On the other, I'm a liability and a musibah. Right? Ever stand there waiting for to be picked to play a game and you're the last guy standing? It's because you have no value to the team. It doesn't mean that you have no value at all. It's just you have no value to this team. Now, obviously, people don't see the difference all the time, which is what I'm going to talk about that in some degree of depth. But I want to preface this series or this concept by explaining that what I'm trying to focus on here is self-value in general and how you view it, and not talking about value to it. Because I accept, and you should accept as well, that your value in certain circumstances is better than your value in other, based on your skill set and what you've studied and what experience that you have. You will have more value in certain teams than you will in other circumstances. That's fine. That's a part of being alive. Your self-value, your ultimate self-value, your absolute self-value should not be equal to that, even though in many cases it is. So I'm going to talk about that in depth. But this is what I want you to understand up front. I'm talking about basic self-value. Where do we derive this self-value from? Is the question that I want you to contemplate over the next number of weeks as you attend this with me. Where do you get it from? How do you maintain it, and what affects it? What increases it and what decreases it? What controls this aspect of your life? It's very, very important to every person sitting here, regardless of where you are in your life. You could be young, you could be old. This piece will affect you at all times throughout your life. So how do you deal with it, and where do you derive your self-value from? What I'm going to do today is explain to you how I look at self-value And I'm going to use an example that you may find cheeky and lame, and that's okay. And if you've heard this from me before, then that's good, and then you can listen to it again. I use the example, this is an example that my shuyukh used with me. I modified it a little bit to be a little bit easier to understand, is the example of the pendulum. The way he explained it to me is that it's like you have a pendulum somewhere inside of you. And this pendulum swings. And when it swings, your self-value, how you understand your self-value, will increase or decrease depending on which direction it's going to swing in. Right? You feel that you're more valuable as a human being or less valuable as a human being, depending on how this pendulum swings. It's obviously not a literal pendulum, but it's a figure of speech. It's an example that I hope you can use to kind of understand your own experiences in life. And the way he explained it to me is that imagine you're carrying this pendulum inside, and you're on a rocky road, ups and downs. So it's very bumpy. So what's happening to the pendulum? It's swinging depending on what bump you're going. Are you going up or you're going down? Right? And the pendulum is a two-story pendulum. So it's two stories. On the top story, you have two extremes. The pendulum will swing to two extremes. On one side, it swings to that which we call vanity. In Arabic, we call that ujb. It's where you're extremely self-centered and the narcissistic personality, as it's called by psychologists and psychiatrists. And then it swings to the other extreme. It swings to low self-esteem, when you think very little of yourself. Right? The second story, and they almost always come together. They almost always work together. This pendulum, the reason I'm using two stories, because they're not separate. They're almost always together. The times when these are separate are very rare, and it's case by case, and usually there's a severe mental illness problem that's associated with it for this not to happen. The second story, if you're spinning to one side, you swing towards arrogance. Arrogance is regarding how you see other people. Vanity is how you see yourself. I'll talk about these in depth, do not worry. I'll explain them as very clearly, inshallah, and very slowly. And if it swings to the other extreme, it's swinging towards inferiority complexes where you feel much less than people. The problem is that both of these extremes are extremely harmful to you as a human being. Neither of them are healthy. Your nafs continuously wants to swing it that way. It wants to swing it to the right as much as possible. It hopes to keep that pendulum on the right. Some people have pathological problems where this pendulum actually gets stuck on one side or the other. But it wants to swing it as much as possible to the right. The problem with that is that what happens with a pendulum when you cannot keep it on one side? Does it swing back right to the middle? It swings right back to the end. And from this, you can understand why it is we have these problems. People who are vain and arrogant are the same people who suffer with low self-esteem and inferiority complexes, because they are two faces to the same coin. If you swing this way, you're going to swing at some point that way. The point of these sessions for the next few months as we talk is for you to learn how to hold it right down the middle. You keep it there. Where instead of having low self-esteem or feeling very vain, you have confidence. You have the proper amount of confidence. Instead of feeling less than people, being inferior, or being arrogant, you have humility. Now, the sum of that self-confidence and humility is what we call humbleness. That is tawadhu'. That's what in Arabic, that's tawadhu'. I'm using my terminology in English here, so if you disagree with it, that's fine. I don't know how to translate certain words from Arabic to English. I'm just telling you what it works from Islamic nomenclature. That's what tawadhu' is. Tawadhu' is where you have self-confidence in terms of how you see yourself, and khafd janah in terms of how you treat people. Together, that makes tawadhu'. And tawadhu' sayyidul akhlaq. He's the master of all ethics. All khair comes through it, if you're capable of having it. The problem is, what swings that pendulum, right? It's like there's electric currents that run through it. Right? If you shock it electrically, it'll swing one direction or the other. If you allow yourself to derive your self-value from variables, then your self-value will be a variable. Then your self-value will be a variable. If you allow yourself to derive your self-value from a variable, then your self-value is going to be a variable as well. So if you derive your self-value from comparisons, for example, you compare yourself to people. So once the comparison works, you feel good. It swings to the right, so you feel better about yourself. And when you compare and you're less, then it swings to the left, and you feel less about yourself and less in comparison to others. If you allow your achievements to dictate your self-value, then if you achieve the goal you're trying to achieve, then it'll swing to the right, and you'll feel better about yourself and better than others. And if you fail to achieve your goal, then it'll swing to the left, and you'll feel less about yourself and less in comparison to others. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, what is the right way to do all of this? The way I would run these sessions historically is I actually wouldn't spoon feed all this information to you. I would just leave you with that and force you to think about this for a few weeks until you're totally frustrated. And when you're frustrated, we'll come back and we'll talk about what the answer is here, because it's really important to think about this. Because when you're thinking about this, you have a lot of questions in your mind about what to do about it. This is just a reality of how we are as human beings. Every person, they grow up into life, and this is what they're rigged to feel. By the age of 15 or 16, this is the norm. This is what they're fighting for. This is what's driving them all the time. The point of learning Tazkiya as a Muslim is that now that you're mature enough to understand concepts, now that you're not being driven by your basic instincts anymore. What you're looking up on the screen up there, these are the basic instincts of every mammal, of every living thing. Meaning, bring any creature. This is what drives them. Creatures, the nafs is ongoingly. Look at, for example, a pride of lions. You would think that it made more sense if the lions all had one lioness and they protected each other, and it makes more sense to me. I always wanted to sit down and educate a couple of these lions. Ya Sheikh, isma, if you just stick together and defend yourselves, you'll have a stronger pride, and there's enough lionesses, and you'll be fine. You don't need to. But no, that doesn't work for them, because they're driven by this basic concept of arrogance and inferiority. They can't be inferior. They have to be better. Being better means they have to beat them. They have to think that they're the strongest, and they have to prove that they're the strongest. So they have to fight off all the lions, and then they have to kill all the children, so that's only them. This is what they're driven by. They're driven by, and that's why animals get depressed too, by the way. Ever seen the orcas with their fin kind of flipped in they're depressed. Their lives are horrible, right? Because they're not able to. That's why many male animals from that carnivores end up dying in the wild when they lose the battle. When they lose the battle and it swings and they're inferior and they can't fight back, either they have enough that's strong enough to swing it that I'm good, and they go and try again, or they die alone in the wild, depressed. Animals have these problems. They don't exhibit the symptoms as we do as human beings, but the idea is still very much alive. Actually, that's where it comes from. It comes from the observation of how animals function in this world. And that animalistic part of who we are, which is what the nafs is, to remind you again, that this is what the nafs is. The nafs is the consciousness of the teen. It's the consciousness of the soil, of the earth. The soil of the earth exists with these instincts of survival and superiority and dominance. That's what drives it. So the nafs is basically just mirroring the ethics of the soil. And then you have the ruh, which is trying to mirror the ethics of God. The values that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put inside of you. So how are you going to do this? There are some clashing forces here, for sure. For sure there's some clashing forces. But they exist somewhere deep in your mind, in how you understand things and how you view things. Some questions I'm going to leave with you, or leave for you to, or give you to think about and contemplate on this topic is, should the pendulum be swinging at all? The question is, does it swing? And the answer is yes, it does. The second question is, should it be swinging? And is there a way for it not to swing? Okay. And where do you derive your self-value from? Like as a person, where do you derive your value from? How do you see yourself worthy and valuable? Where do you get that from? What are the sources of this? Is the source of this people around you and their testimony that you're valuable? Is the source of your value the achievements and accomplishments that you have been able to bring for yourself in your life? Is it the comparisons that you have with those around you? What is your? There's a lot of sources, by the way. There's many things. I'm just giving you the main ones that we all kind of, the simple answer. Where do you derive your self-value? And if you're deriving it from something that can change, then what happens? If my value today is based on your opinion in me, well, what happens when you change your opinion? Do I lose my self-value? Do I start feeling less about myself? Do I become less? Am I less because you think less of me? Or what if everyone thought less of me? Am I at that point less? So we come down to the question that this whole series is going to be, is designed to answer. Self-value is based on humanity, meaning you're a human being. Tell me what can happen to you that will make you less of a human being or more of a human being. So what could happen in your life that will make you more of a human being? What can happen to you in your life that will make you less of a human being? So the simple answer to that is nothing. You're a human being. Unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yamsakh, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes the nature of your creation, which we have never seen and only exists in stories, then nothing really increases your value or decreases your value. Because your value is based on the fact that you're a human being. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ وَرَزَقْنَاهُم مِّنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِّمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. Indeed, we have dignified the human being. Your value comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, creating you as a human being. It's innate, and it's divine. Your value as a person is divine. No one can touch it. Nothing can change it. Nothing can decrease it. But unfortunately, nothing can increase it either. It's just a brick of whatever it is that Allah created, and it's constant. If you are loved by every person that ever lived, you're just a human being. And if you're hated by every person that ever lived, you're just a human being. I'm not talking about humanity as an ethic. I'm not talking about humanity as an ethic. Sometimes we use the word humanity as an ethic, even though it's not an ethic. Insaniya is not an ethic. Muru'ah is an ethic, and I explained that in Ramadan. Insaniya is just something we came up with. We coined the phrase in the last 100 years. But it doesn't exist Islamically. If you go to the books, it doesn't exist at all. The word insaniya, humanity, as an ethic, doesn't exist. So I'm talking as a human being. Nothing makes you more of a person. Nothing will make you less of a person. You will always just be a person. This concept, it requires a fair amount of contemplation for all of us to wrap our heads around. That I am not anything more than a human being or less than a human being. And nothing I do makes me more or makes me less. My value is the same. If you understand that, you stop fighting to try and prove your value. And I want to say that to my younger brothers and sisters. There's nothing to prove. You are valuable. Your value is divine. No one can touch it because it was granted you by the divine himself subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one has access to it. They can say what they want about you. They can, you can be thrown in jail. Your reputation can be destroyed. You are still a human being. And that will never be taken away from you. And that value is divine. But it also works the other way. That no matter what people say about you, no matter how much they hold you in high regards and respect you and revere you, you're only a human being too. That's not going to change. The divinity or the divineness of our value is one of the hallmarks of what Islam teaches. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, he says subhanahu wa ta'ala. The most beloved or the most dignified amongst you in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the ones with most piety. Piety is something that is not measurable. We can't measure piety. I don't have anything to measure taqwa with. Taqwa is not a measurable thing. It's something only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about. And because of that, no one in this earth can be seen as more valuable as a human being or less valuable as a human being. They may be seen more valuable within the domain they're good at. For example, this person is a doctor, so they're more valuable in medicine than someone who didn't study medicine. This is a alim, so he's more valuable when it comes to the knowledge of sharia than someone who didn't study. This is an architect, he's more valuable in terms of making buildings and keeping people safe than someone who didn't. So your valuable in terms of teams is different than your value as a human being. If you mix them up, if you decide that your self-value is not that, and you want more, and you decide that you're going to derive your value from a different source, that that's not enough for you, you're going to derive it from your value to the team that you work with, or the community that you exist within, or the accomplishments that you are able to achieve within your life, or your comparisons that you have with people around you, then you are going to be continuously miserable for the rest of your life. You're going to live a life of ongoing misery, I guarantee it. Welcome. Welcome. This is hell. This is what hell looks like. Hell is this ongoing swing of the pendulum that you are experiencing because you have attached your self-value, you've attached that top spot that moves the pendulum to all these sources that are going to keep on giving it different electrical currents, and it's going to keep on moving, and you're never going to be able to feel fine. When Islam, what it does is it holds down that pendulum nice and stable right in the middle. Why? Because there is no, you cut all of these connections. All of those connections up front, you cut them out. No. They're not there. They're not there. But I'm still, wallahi, people who grow up like that, you'll run into this, by the way. This is probably the only country I've seen it. I've seen it here. I've seen this here. Not from Muslims. I've seen it from the non-Muslims. I've seen it from non-Muslims. I've seen non-Muslim kids, kids who come from wealthy and powerful families. I've seen how they carry themselves. They're told that growing up. They're told that not with the right intention and the right way, but they're told enough of it that they don't feel threatened by your opinion or what you have to say. We see them as entitled, and we don't like them, and we call them names, and we have certain names for them. But really, in essence, what they are just people who are self-value is absolute. They don't feel threatened by anything you have to say about them or to them. They don't feel less than you, and they're not threatened by you, they're not scared of you. It's a level of inner stability that is extremely important. We don't grow up like that. I'm going to be very honest. I didn't grow up like that. No. We don't grow up like that. Changing this, by the way, is a whole different thing. Like to change our social approach of how to raise our children is a very different thing. I don't know if we have the capacity. I'm not going to be able to achieve that in this halaqa for you. Because most of us come from Middle Eastern families or families, and the way you're raised is you have to continuously prove your worth and prove your value. So you're on this conquest in life, trying to prove that you're valuable and prove you're valuable. And you're never told at any point that you really don't need to do that. We just told you to do that as a kid so we'd motivate you because you were too lazy. But you're actually very valuable. You don't need to do anything else. You're a human being, and that's all that matters. And you're fine the way you are. The way Allah created you is you're fine. No one can take that away from you. No one can add to it. No one can subtract from it. It is what it is, and you calm down. But when you're not raised like that, you're raised to see that the only way I can be valuable is if I'm better than my peers, or if I achieve this goal, or if I accomplish this specific milestone, then you're going to continuously feel less about yourself until you do. And then when you do, when it swings over there, and that high wears off, it swings back again. Which is why most people they achieve, and they're happy for the moment of achievement, and then they go home and they wonder, well, why am I so empty? It's not empty, the pendulum swung. That's all. It swung one way and it's swinging back now because it doesn't stay there. The only way for it to stay is right in the middle where it should have been to begin with. Your question to me is going to be, well, how do I motivate myself to do things? You understand how sad that question is? The only way you can motivate yourself to do something is if you prove that you have value. Ya Sheikh, you have value. You don't have to prove anything. But you have no way to motivate yourself unless you're going to prove your value. Wallah, miskeen. Wallahi, what a horrible way to live. May Allah forgive whoever made you think that or live that way. Wallahi. Rabbi Samih, whatever happened historically that put you in a position where you felt that you had to, the only way you could motivate yourself to do something is if you were going to prove that you were valuable. You are valuable. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed divinely that you are valuable from the moment you were created. No one takes that away from you. No one has the ability to take that away from you because they don't have access to it to begin with. They can say what they want. It doesn't affect you. It only affects you if you decide that it will affect you. If you attach their opinions to the top of that thing and it swings it back and forth and you become a people pleaser, you care about what they think. The same thing goes for accomplishments and achievements. So these kids that I'm talking to you about that have that self-value, their problem is that they become bums. Because they were given the right piece in terms of their innate value as people, they're very confident in who they are, but then they weren't taught why they should be motivated, why they should aspire to greatness, why they should be trying to do. That piece is not there. It's not a part of the deen that they carry, so they don't have it. So you see a lot of these younger people who just sit and play video games all day and do the bare minimum of work. They take crappy jobs just to make enough to buy a sandwich and you find someone who's willing to share their bed. That's it. And it's a very difficult thing to do. You look at it, why are they like that? Well, of the equation of success, they were given one piece and the other piece didn't exist. But that makes the other equation also a failure. So the first equation where your value is set and you need to figure out why you're going to do things. You're not doing things to try to prove that you're valuable. You're just going to do things for a different reason. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what is it and you want you to think about it. If you don't know what it is, then you have a real problem you have to fix. If you're like, oh, well, if I am valuable, then why would I need to do anything? La, ya sheikh. Of course you have to do things. It's because you're valuable you should be doing things. What do you mean? The other equation where you're driven, but you're driven because you feel less and because you're trying to prove yourself, also doesn't work for success. And that's not real success. You achieve things, but it's not going to be meaningful. And it's going to be disappointing, and it's going to be empty. And it's not going to be ever enough. And you're going to keep on running after something. It's a carrot that is in front. You'll never get it. You'll never get it. And that's why you watch people. You watch people all the time. Sometimes, have you ever seen a really famous athlete? Like so famous as in, everybody knows the name. Like across the globe. And then they retire, and then they go into severe depression, and they overdose, or they can't. You wonder why. You are wealthy, you are good-looking, you are athletic, and you are loved. I can't understand why you feel this way. Well, if all his life he derived his value from people said about him, making sure that pendulum was always swinging that way, imagine when that goes away. The severity of the swing in the opposite direction. Imagine that this pendulum has been for decades being swung as far as possible to the one side, and it was there for a long time, and then when the tide pulls it all out, imagine how brutally, how viciously it's going to swing in the opposite direction. And the fall is even bigger. Unless they figured out at some point in their lives that this is not the way to do it, and they bring it down, and they hold it down right in the middle, and they're not affected by this anymore. It takes a certain degree of spiritual maturity, by the way, and protection and education for people not to fall down, not to fall for this trick. The way that you're going to perform this is you're going to learn that the pendulum should never swing, and whatever emotions that you build inside of you, based on its swing, are not genuine. Like they're not real. When you feel better about yourself because of it, that feeling is not real. It's a pseudo emotion. It's a lie. And it's toxic. It's like a drug. It's like a drug. It is exactly that. Meaning, what you feel is what you would feel taking drugs. It's the same thing. It's as toxic, it's as addictive, and it's as hard to get rid of. You have to learn to experience genuine emotions that are not based on that thing swinging. Where you actually experience happiness and joy and satisfaction, and your pendulum is holding right nice in the middle. You're confident, you're humble, You don't feel better than people or less than people. You're not even interested in that. You're not full of yourself. You don't feel less about yourself. You're not even focused on yourself to begin with. And you experience genuine emotion. Genuine emotion, for the first time you experience it, is weak, because it's like trying to experience a high without. If someone's been on cocaine for a long time and you take them off, everything is dull for a while. Like everything becomes dull. Every happiness, everything is dull because they've been lying to their receptors for a long time, telling themselves this is a satisfaction, this is happiness, and this is fulfillment, and this and this. You take it away, and everything feels dull for a while. But then if they're perseverant, they will experience real emotion. In real time, they'll experience it, and it'll be much more meaningful. The reason people can't, you stand in salah and you can't really feel anything, it's because salah is not offering a swing. That's why. Because salah doesn't offer a swing of that thing up there. So you just stand there. Until maybe the imam does something and he swings it for you. And then suddenly you feel something. And I can tell you that the majority of what people feel in emotion in salah is not real. Because it's not a real emotion. It's based on a swing of the pendulum. It's a fear of something that they shouldn't be fearing specifically, or it's a feel of satisfaction, or it's a play. I'll talk about examples for that for sure. Don't worry. But it's not real. When you get rid of that, and it's one place and you transition from having feelings based on the swing of that pendulum to genuine emotions. That's how you understand Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu and all the Sahaba who stood in prayer and they sobbed when they were praying at all times. You speak of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the tears run down their faces, and they're in joy and harmony and synchrony with what's being said, and they're enjoying every moment of it because they fixed that long time ago. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam came. I don't know how he did it, alayhi salatu wasalam, that quickly. But he came and he put his hand, his yadahu sharif alayhi salam, on the hearts of these people, and he removed all of this. So they didn't think about this anymore. And they were able to actually experience life raw, in an appropriate manner, and actually experience love and empathy and rahmah and reverence, right? The emotions that actually move people without having that, without being based on I feel better about myself or less about myself, or better than other people or lesser than other people. Nah, none of that garbage. None of that stuff, just raw emotion. I'm not saying you've never experienced it. No, I'm sure you have. Everyone has. I'm just saying that you have to start within these sessions to differentiate between what is real and what is based on this pseudo movement of self-value. What happiness was based on something that was real, and what happiness was based on just you felt this gave you a boost in terms of your self-value. You have to start differentiating between them. You have to start cleansing how you derive your value. You have to start snipping all these wires. This is not a reason. I'm not valuable because of this. Oh my God, this is very difficult. So I learned all this, right? Years ago, 20 years ago. And I thought I understood it, and I taught it, and and then the war happened, and I went to jail, and I was treated like garbage, but it didn't harm me. I was fine, totally fine. And I thought, okay, I achieved something, alhamdulillah, and then I was plucked out of my little nest in Syria, and I was landed here. And someone came to my hard drive and pressed reset. And I was no longer a physician and no longer a sheikh. I was nothing. I was absolutely no one. With nothing, with no wealth, with no friends, with nowhere to live, and nowhere to make a job, or to make a living. And at that moment, I understood what this meant. It was like all of it was just a lot of theory the sheikh explained, and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful, amazing. And then it slapped me across the face so hard that oh, now I understand. Oh, this is what it means. Oh, now I get it. Because everything was taken away like that. Well, within a few nights. It's like within a night, just from going on a plane from one place to the other, knowing you're not going back and leaving everything behind. Literally everything. And I'm sure other people have had similar experiences and probably even worse than that. I'm just explaining that at that moment, I figured, oh, so I still derive a little bit of value from that. I wasn't I wasn't what I thought I was. I'm telling you this because one of my shuyukh sat down and said the same thing to us. He said the same thing. He sat and he said, I'm not going to give his name because maybe some people don't like certain shuyukh, so I'm not going to use his name. But he sat there and he said, I thought that I had figured all this out. And he told us a story. He had invited a friend of his, a sheikh, another imam, to his masjid. And the aada is that you bring the sheikh to the masjid and you offer them a place to give a khatira, to give the khutbah, to give a dars, right? And he loved this man very much, and he reveres him, and he was so happy that he came. So he said, okay, inshallah, this week the sheikh will give the khutbah and give the dars and give the khatira. And the sheikh said, and my friend was like way better than me. Like he was on the minbar, and everyone was enjoying it more. His voice was better. His recitation was nicer. His khutbahs landed. People were listening. And for a minute there, he said, I felt something. He said, for a minute there, I felt something inside my heart. So what he did, and this is how he explained, قال فأقسمت عليه يبقى أسبوعا وخدمته الأسبوع كله. So I came to him and I swore, you're going to stay for a full week, giving durus and I will be your servant. I will bring you the water. I will sit at your feet and I will translate to people. And he did that for the full week to get rid of that from his heart. Like I figured out, shaitan, because shaitan and your nafs, when you look away, the nafs connects something immediately. You look away from this for 1 second, the nafs puts a wire in and then hopes that you do well there so it can swing it to the end. The nafs wants to be, the nafs loves you. It's just stupid, that's all. He just doesn't know what's good. Things like, swing it that way. Just keep it, always over there, just over there. That's what's best for you. And you try to explain to it, no, it's not best for me, he doesn't care. He's just always going to do it. And for a moment there, he didn't, he got lazy. He got lazy for a moment and we're like, and we start deriving value from something we should never derive value from. So what you've achieved and what you've accomplished, it means nothing. If you understand life appropriately, it means nothing. It means nothing at all. If you understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you understand your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means nothing at all. But if you don't, then you're in trouble. You're in trouble. This is the essence of what it means to be alive, by the way. This is what life is about. Everything in life follows under these basic concepts I'm explaining to you. Just understanding where your value comes from and where you're deriving it from and how to remove that and how to change it. When I came, I had to learn, I can't do that. I was getting a bit lazy. I got dependent. I have a masjid, I run a masjid, I'm a physician. You get lazy, you start thinking. And then when it's taken away, you feel something for a moment. No, astaghfirullah. It's the biggest blessing in my life. He removed me, so I learned. Because if he left me there, I would have slowly kept on building on, and I would have never noticed. Never noticed that I got lazy and I missed it, even though I knew this stuff. Knowing is one thing, and applying is very different. It requires a lot of focus, and I got lazy for a bit. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed me, and Rabbani, Addabani. He taught me, and he raised me, so I know. So I'll never make that mistake again, inshallah, for the rest of my life. And inshallah, this explanation for you and the point of these sessions, that inshallah, you won't make this mistake in your life. And you won't allow yourself to derive value from variable sources that will make your value variable and put you in positions where you're vain and you're arrogant. And then later on, where you have low self-esteem, you feel less than others and you're miserable. Where you can bring it to a nice place right in the middle, where none of that matters to you. Where your value is derived directly and exclusively from the haqq subhanahu wa ta'ala, divinely. And your good deeds don't increase it, and your bad deeds don't decrease it. I know you're listening to this saying, what? Yes, they don't increase your value or decrease your value as a human being. They draw you closer to Allah and inshallah give you a better probability of going to Jannah, and that's one thing. But your value as a human being doesn't get affected by that. If you read more Quran, you're more human than I am. If you read more Quran than me. Or if I do more than, no, it doesn't change. Actually, one of the worst things you can do is derive self-value from religiosity. I didn't put it up there, but you can think of it. From your religiosity. And scholars of Tazkiya have been talking about this for hundreds of years. That if you derive your value from your religiosity, that means you feel better about yourself. You feel that you're better and you're more valuable when you perform good deeds, and you feel that you're less when you don't know. That's not actually what you're supposed to feel. That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to feel. The motive for you to repent from your sin and to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should not be based on your self-value. Well, what should it be based on? Well, that's what you're going to have to figure out. That's what you're going to have to figure out. I'm sorry, you have to figure that out. And if you're like, I don't care then if my value is the same. Well, then that's when your focus becomes, well, what happens later, Yawm al-Qiyamah? Well, there's reward, and there's love, and there's empathy, and there's uquba, and there's punishment, and there's wrath, and there's difficulty. And you start seeing them differently. You start thinking about them differently. And your focus upon mortality changes because now you're seeing yourself in a different light altogether. And this is the essence of a lot of the problems, or all of the problems, in my opinion, that people struggle with. And today's purpose was to have an introduction, inshallah, on this topic. I am leaving you with a lot to think about. My purpose in these sessions is not to offer you an answer to every question I ask or to explain to you in depth every concept that I bring up. I am leaving loose ends for you to think about yourself. I will, inshallah, address them as we go along. Like, I will talk about them and make sure that I explain them to the best of my ability. And I'll offer you space, inshallah, to ask questions as well. But you have to take time and really think about what this means and how it affects you as a person. I'll end with that, inshallah. We'll continue next week. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Shadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina wa habibina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullahu khayran wa barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله